want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for themselves. My producer, Andy, is making me do this intro again. He said I was flat on the intro. We're filming this at night, and he said, I know it's nighttime, Clark, but you got to liven it up a little. So, whoo! Here we go. Another episode of the Free Like Me podcast coming at you. I'm your host, Clark Fredericks. Guests come in here, speak their truth, and leave their pain and shame behind and walk out of here free like me. If you want to be a guest, reach out to me. You know, if you got an interesting life's journey, if you overcome addiction or sex abuse or whatever it may be, reach out and we'll set up a consultation call and we'll see if we can't get you on the show. Same thing for coaching. If you are interested in turning your life around and taking your life in a new direction, reach out and we'll go over the specifics and see about getting you going. And this week we have Adan with us. He swore he would never be like his father, an alcoholic. And guess what? He became just like his father, an alcoholic. He's overcome that finally. He's 34 years old. He's got 18 months sober, and he's here to share his journey with us. Let's hear from him. Adan, my brother, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Clark?
Good. It's nice to meet you. I said before the camera turned on, I said, man, you look good for the hard life you had.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you look great, man. People say that to me too. Like, you know, I pushed this body as hard as it would go. And people are like, I actually had a retired cop say to me, you're the worst example of drug addiction ever. You look great.
You do, man.
He goes, how am I supposed to tell people don't do drugs when you look the way you do?
Yeah, 100%.
And that's how you look too, man. You look
Thank
awesome.
you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, you know, you're not here because you look good. You're here because you went through hell to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I'm honored that you want to share your journey with me and with my guests, you know, with my audience. I mean, you know, these stories that people come on here and tell, it'll reach that one person, you know, who's struggling like you struggled or who had the upbringing like you had. And maybe they'll be like, maybe they'll step away from going all the way to the bottom before they, you know, turn things around. You know, so many of us, we got to smack that rock bottom. If we can just reach a couple people and say, no, you don't, you can turn it around, you know? So hopefully that's what your story will do for somebody.
Yeah, that's the end goal, right?
Absolutely, man. So tell me where you grew up and then tell me a little about, you know, what life as a child was like for you.
I grew up in Santa Monica my early years. I was pretty much brought up over there, and then we moved to the San Fernando Valley. I come from Mexican parents. We were pretty much raised as if we lived in Mexico. Um, and what I mean by that, I mean, we had a little bit of just enough of everything, you know? My upbringing, my father was an alcoholic. My mom was a housewife. She pretty much took care of all four of us. I'm the second oldest, so I have an older sister and a younger brother and younger sister.
In the Mexican culture, you know, I don't, just from my own ignorance, is alcoholism, you know, a common thing, or just your father just, you know, happened to be an alcoholic?
It's a big part of it. Drinking is kind of like normal, you know, it's normalized. It's kind of like a social thing, right? Gatherings, birthday parties, whatnot. I mean, there's always alcohol, you know? And so yeah, I mean, to answer your question, it's pretty normal in the Mexican culture to have alcohol laying around and in every single type of scenario, you know, it could be just about anything and there's alcohol.
Now, with all the riots going on out in LA right now, were your parents here legally or illegally?
They were both here illegally.
And did they since become citizens?
Yes, correct. Correct.
Okay.
Both my dad and my mom.
Did your father have any trouble coming over here finding work?
It's kind of hard to say because I don't have like a super close bond with my dad, like we're very close, but not like to the point where he's kind of like told me everything that he's been through and whatnot. To my knowledge and to what I know, um, it wasn't easy. It was not easy, but he hasn't really gone into detail with what he went through.
Now, with your dad being an alcoholic, was it, a lot of chaos, a lot of trauma, a lot of fighting? What was home life like?
Yeah, I mean, it was your typical dysfunctional upbringing. My dad would get home when he did get home from drinking, and obviously my mom, she had a lot of trauma because of my dad's alcoholism. So she would pretty much, as soon as my dad would get home from work, obviously super intoxicated, um, she would pretty much tell him the things that we did wrong during the day, right? I mean, hey, they were misbehaving, etc. So who would he take it out on? I mean, he would take it out on us, right? And we had a lot of that growing up.
Why would your mom throw you guys under the bus?
I don't think she did it intentionally. I just think that she never got the attention that she wanted from my dad. So that was kind of like a way for her to get to my understanding, right? For her to get some type of attention, right? Like, hey, you know what? They were misbehaving. I don't think she did it to like for us to get punished, but that was the outcome, right?
What would it be? Belts, whippings?
Yeah, pretty much. It was like belt whippings and um the last of the things that I can remember that happened, he grabbed my dad grabbed my brother, my younger brother from the neck, and he left like this big mark on his neck. And the following day he went to school, and a teacher asked him what had happened, and he pretty much ratted off he ratted my dad out, right? Which that's something that my mom would always tell us, like, hey, you know what? Don't ever tell the teachers or anybody anything that happens, because you guys are gonna, be taken away from us, and you guys are not gonna live a good life, this and that. So he did just that, he pretty much ratted on my dad, and social workers ended up coming to the house, and but before the social workers came to the house, we were, told, you guys are not gonna say anything. So pretty much we just acted like we lived a perfect life. We were just playing around, and it's like it was just normal to us, right? I mean, you're brought up that way. It just becomes like your normal life, right? Until you start seeing other kids that have better lives, like they don't have that going on. You're like, okay, well, my life is not that normal, right?
Right, right, right. What was it every day with your dad? Was he
It
coming home
was
drunk every day or
every day, man. Every
yeah?
day for as long as I can remember. And I think I mentioned to you how for me it was more of like my mother screaming, from when we woke up to when we went to sleep, there was screaming in the house. There was always like putting us down. Because my oldest sister, she was always good at everything, man. She was valedictorian. She excelled in school, She excelled in school, so she would always put her as an example, but not in a good way. Like she would always like, hey, why can you be like her? Why can you do this like her, etc. So there was always like a comparison in the house, and
And how were you guys in school? How were you?
we were not bad. I actually I had honor roll middle school.
Oh,
High school, I was good up to 12th grade. And I always did pretty good in school because in order to play soccer, I had to have good grades.
did you ever hear your parents say "I love you" to each other, to you guys?
Yeah, they were never affectionate. I never saw them. I never saw them kiss, hug. They were not affectionate towards us either. It was very rare. It was very rare for us to get a hug or a kiss. I remember my dad hugging me once when he was drunk, and that was pretty much as far as it ever got.
Wow. Yeah, I posted a clip today for a guy who's going to air tomorrow. And he came from a wealthy family, and his father expressed love by providing for the family. Like, he never was at his any sports games. He never gave him a hug or said I love you. And I think it's that old school mentality. Like, I'm out busting my ass every day. That shows I love you. Cut me a break.
That was pretty much my upbringing. My dad worked a lot. Apart from his alcoholism, he worked a lot. He's always worked. He's always been a hardworking man. And that's one thing he showed us. But yeah, my mom took us to every single soccer game we ever had. Um, Up to this date, he spends his time in AA, which is way better than drinking, right? But you can't change people at the end of the day. I feel like even for him to just take a day off of work, he doesn't need it that bad. And just, but it is what it is.
So it's still tough to him, even though he's sober now, is what you're saying, to like express that emotional side of himself.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Yeah.
does it. He helps us out a lot. He's still there for us. It's just that's his way of showing us love. It's just obviously it's very different than I feel like that's how he was brought up, right? I mean, he probably didn't have that growing up. I haven't gotten, like I said, I'm not so close to him to actually know why he is the way he is, but I feel like it has to do with past trauma. I feel like we all have that past trauma, right?
Yeah, you don't know what your father's upbringing was like, or your mother's, and what their parents were like. And
Exactly.
I constantly say that all the time. Like, we're so lucky. Like, here you and I can hop on. You in California, me in New Jersey here, and connect. Like, our parents couldn't do that. Our grandparents couldn't do that. Their parents couldn't do it. Whatever trauma they had back in the day, it was grab a bottle of vodka and get to work and do what you had to do.
Yeah, because I feel like mental awareness was not a thing back then. It was like you're feeling a certain way, man up, you know? It was kind of like that's what it was, right? I mean, you didn't have like, oh, I have depression. I can't. No, I mean, depression was not a thing. I mean, I don't think anxiety was a thing. I remember I for as long as I can remember, I've suffered from anxiety, right? And and thank God, um, my mom pushed me through it. I would tell her about my anxiety, and she would always tell me, like, you're okay, go to school, you know? And that's how I learned to live with it. That's how I learned to live with it because, it's like it wasn't a thing, back in at least I can't remember, right? But I don't think it was that big of a thing as it is now, right? Mental awareness.
And so you have this anxiety and battling depression, probably. And you've told me you were a really shy kid. So I'm
Oh
sure
man.
the shyness, created that also and fed it.
I was a very shy kid. I was a very shy kid for as long as I can remember since I was little, elementary school, middle school. Um, Never really had a girlfriend because I couldn't talk to one. High school, pretty much even worse, right? Because you have your buddies that they have their girlfriends, and I c- I didn't. I mean, I feel like now I understand it because it goes back to like me not seeing any type of affection in my household, right? I mean, for me, holding a girl's hand was just like, I don't know, it was just not normal. And obviously shyness, and up to this date, I'm still shy, but not as shy as I once was, right? Um, and drinking changed all of that, man.
Yeah, well, you never saw your parents hold hands or hug or kiss or say I love you. So, like, that's all foreign to you, so that created who you became.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
man. When did you first try alcohol? You're raised in an alcoholic family. Did you say when you were younger, I'll never touch alcohol and become like dad?
I always said that I was not going to be like my dad, and I turned out to be the closest thing to my dad. And, so Yeah, I mean, 100%. I never thought in a million years I would turn out to be just like my dad.
And when did you try alcohol for the first time?
I tried alcohol when I was 17 years old. I remember my cousin introduced me to drinking, and the first time I tried it, I did not like. I never really liked the taste of it. Um, I loved what it did to me, like the second time that I drank, I was like, this is it. This is the answer to all my traumas, to all my problems, to everything I had been carrying for such a long period of time, like, and it's obviously something that I did not know, right? I did not know that um the drinking had to do, it would fix like my shyness and the trauma that I had, but it's something that just obviously, at the moment I thought it was the answer.
You just said, "This is it," you know? And, I recall I had this Episcopal priest come on the show who was an alcoholic, and he said when he drank, it was like the angels were singing to him. He's like, "It didn't get any better." And, and so here you are, this shy kid, and then all of a sudden the alcohol just, like, makes you outgoing and talkative and boisterous.
Pretty much I became the person I wanted to be. Not well, in the beginning I became the person I wanted to be while drinking, right? The only time that I was outgoing and not shy and that I could actually go up to a girl was when I was intoxicated, you know? And I had to be intoxicated to a certain extent. From the first day I drank, I did not I knew I knew I had a problem, I couldn't drink like a normal human being. Like I would have friends that would drink and they would socialize and drink a couple beers, and I would kind of drink as if it was a marathon, like if there was a prize at the end of that beer, or bottle. So and why? Because I was trying to run away from my reality, right?
You start at 17. Do you graduate high school?
I finished school, but I did not get my GED or high school diploma.
So in that quick of a amount of time, 17, really your second time you drank it, you're like, this is it. It took you over just like that, and that was it.
I had not experienced anything to that date that filled me as much as drinking did. When I would drink, I didn't need that love, that I felt I needed when I was sober. And obviously you have all kinds of friends when you drink, right? When you're in that atmosphere, you have so many friends, if you're drinking, you have friends. If you have money, you have friends. So it's kind of like to a certain extent, I was okay with that life, at that moment. I would start drinking sometimes Fridays, and then I would stop Mondays, and then, start all over on Tuesday, saving up money to be able to drink it on the weekend. And yeah, I didn't see not one paycheck from that age gap.
All went to alcohol.
Everything I worked hard for, everything went to alcohol. I mean, every single Monday or Tuesday, I had to ask my brother or my dad to lend me money because I did not have 1 cent. Everything went to alcohol. Everything went to alcohol and drugs.
So when did drugs come into the picture?
Maybe when I was like 27, because the age gap that I gave you from 17 to 25, that was like my hardcore drinking. I continued to drink for a couple more years, but it was more of like a um, 1 day a week, or you know, 2, 3 a month, and so on and so forth, but from 17 to 25, I drink every single weekend pretty much.
And are you drinking like just bottles of vodka, tequila, whatever you can get your hands on?
Anything I could get my hands on, man. I pretty much robbed every single liquor store and 7-Eleven around my area. Just grab 24 packs with my buddies and would run out. A couple of them caught me, but they ended up letting me go. And and stuff like that. I got to the point where I started hanging around with a buddy of mine. I won't say his name, and and he had a manager that would work at McDonald's. Um, and he had already done this in the past. He had already done this, but I hadn't. It was new to me. So pretty much the manager, we ended up going to his house, and he told us that he would pay us if he could perform oral sex on us. And we would obviously we ended up agreeing. We agreed. He had already done it in the past. It was new to me, you know. But obviously my addiction was so bad that I agreed. I agreed every single time because all I was thinking about was that next beer or that next bottle, etc. So, and since obviously I would always run out of money because of drinking, I needed some way, somehow, I would run out of money and also get fired from every single job I ever had because I would miss work. I felt like they needed me for them to continue on business, like I needed them in reality, right? But they would always end up firing me from I got fired from every job I could remember because of drinking.
I think society in general gives drinking the pass. Like it's the fentanyl addict or the heroin addict or the crack addict who will go to the extreme to get their drug. And here you're saying alcohol had such a hold on you that it would make you do things sexually that were you would never even have contemplated if you weren't in the grasp of addiction.
I was disgusted with myself, I was disgusted with myself, with my actions, because it's something that, number one, I never saw growing up. Um, and number two, I never thought I would seep that low, with alcohol and at the time I didn't use drugs, but with alcohol, so it's just, it's just part of what goes with alcoholism and addiction. It's like you're trying to get that next bottle, that next fix, and you're not. I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't love myself. I didn't love my reality, right? So I didn't care how low I went.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing where addiction will take us. Like I look back on some of the crap I did. While high or to get high. It's just it's amazing. And then every guest that comes on here has their own horror story, and it really doesn't matter what the drug is. It just when you need that fix to hide you from your reality, you'll go to any extreme to get it.
Without a doubt.
I applaud you for being willing to share how low you sunk there. A lot of people would keep that to themselves. What people are going to hear that and be like, "Oh my God, why did he say that on air?" So I'm going to ask you, why were you willing to share how low the alcohol took you that you would sell yourself for a bottle to be able to get money for a bottle?
Well, to be honest with you and transparent, I mean, the reason why I'm opening up the way I am is so I can help someone else, right? I mean, I feel like to a certain extent, we didn't have this growing up, right? I don't remember there being like self-help videos and people that are willing to do the work that you're doing, and I feel like that's something that has helped me out. It's helped me out so much to hear other people's stories and um especially every story is different, right? Every story is different, some worse than others, but at the end of the day it's like it just shows you that there's no boundaries with alcoholism and drug addiction. It's like you could be wealthy or not, and it's still going to deteriorate whatever comes between it, right?
And what drugs did you start doing? Was it coke? Was it meth? What was it?
I started with cocaine in the beginning. I only lasted like a month sniffing cocaine. and then I jumped straight to crystal meth. And I that's as far as I went with drugs, crystal meth. But I was hooked on it for a very, very long time after that. And it was only while drinking.
And then it allows you to drink even more when you're doing that.
When I first inhaled cocaine, I was like, this is it. This is the answer for me to continue to drink as much as I want to drink without having to act dumb. And so to a certain extent, it kind of saved my life, man. Which is weird to say, but it kind of saved my life in the aspect where I don't know what would have happened if I wouldn't have, you know, touched that drug, because I was a blackout drunk. So I was a blackout drunk from the first day I drank. So I had no clue what would happen the night before. I would get into fights. I would just do the dumbest things possible while drinking. I got hit by a tow truck once while crossing the street from a club. Just a bunch of dumb stuff. So when I met cocaine and crystal meth, I was like, man, this is it. Like I'll remember everything I do while drinking. And honestly, I mean, I still got into more stuff down the road with drugs, but to be honest with you, it saved me from a lot of problems as well. Like I don't know if I would have got to the age where I'm at now. I don't want to put it as it's a good thing, right? Like I don't want to make it seem like it was a good thing for me, because of the path where I was going, because I was a blackout drunk. I was lucky enough not to OD or die from it, you know?
Wow. So you're blacking out like every time you drink. Are you're getting in fights, you say? Are you getting hit by a tow truck? Are you landing like waking up in the hospital?
All the time. I was like a regular at the hospitals, because of fights that I would get into. Obviously, most of the time I would lose. Um, and the last thing that ever happened to me, I got my jaw broken, because I was with the wrong group of guys, and that was the last thing that happened to me. But I was a regular at hospitals, and um it was normal for my mom to get a call and like, hey, you know what? Adan got beat up. He's in the this hospital. And yeah, so it was just normal, like I remember calling her from jail. I was in they got me out in near Napa Valley. They got me they took me to Napa jail or Napa Valley jail. And I remember calling her from jail, and she was like, I don't know what you're gonna do, but I'm not getting you out. So yeah, that was kind of like, it was just regular, it was normal.
Are you getting DUIs?
I got one DUI, and from that was the last thing that was the last thing that happened to me before I stopped drinking. I got that DUI. Um, I did my 3 years of probation. I got that over with, but I've been sober for a year and a half now. Thank God.
And you're how old now?
34.
So you drank steadily up until 32 or so?
Yeah.
What finally changed for you? I mean, you can't hold a job. You probably can't hold a relationship. Um, how do you hold an apartment, when you're going from job to job to job and not saving money, so I'm sure you're couch surfing a lot of times.
The main thing that made me realize I had to stop was the fact that, number one, I was tired of suffering, because to those who don't have to those who don't have a problem with alcohol or drugs, maybe do not know that the person that obviously is drinking and doing drugs doesn't only make the family suffer, they suffer themselves, and it's kind of like in a way, it's a silent suffering, because like in the beginning you have fun while drinking, and if then after it reaches to the point where it reached for me, it becomes a job, drinking calls or there's this saying that Brandon Novak has, when alcohol called, I answered, and that's kind of how it was for me towards the end, like um I felt like it was a job, I felt some type of anxiety because I would always get anxiety the day I was gonna drink, the day I was it was planned for me to drink. Let's just say I was gonna drink on a Friday. That day in the morning I would get anxiety. And I felt like that was a calling for me to drink, like obviously I didn't know how to control my emotions. So the way I controlled my emotions was by drinking. So it just became a job, and that's when I realized, apart from me having I have a 13-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. So I was like, you know what, I can't live like this forever. And I didn't want my kids to grow up how I grew up, you know. Not seeing my dad, and when I did see my dad, I would see him intoxicated. Thankfully, throughout my alcoholism, my son never really saw me drunk or drinking. Uh, and neither my daughter. I was able to, whenever I would drink, I would go somewhere else, either with a friend but they never saw me intoxicated. I would never get home and just be, over here like just crazy and just intoxicated.
How do we get sober? Like, what is there like a final thing, or do you pick a date and do you say that's it on such date? That's it, or what? Or do you end up in a hospital again? Was there a final trigger?
The last thing that ever happened was a DUI, man. That was the last thing that ever happened. And there wasn't like I had been man, I had been trying to get sober for maybe 6 years prior to me getting sober. I knew I had a problem. I knew I had a problem and I had to change it, but I never took that step, right? That step to accept that I had an issue. I always knew I had that problem, but I didn't want to man up and change my ways, like it's a lot easier to continue to suffer than to make that change, so for me, it was so much easier to continue to suffer day after day after day than to make that change and, get some help, like, for me, my thing was I got a therapist. So I got therapy because I was having a lot of anxiety. Um, Obviously the direct result of alcoholism, right? And apart from, everything I had been through since I was a kid, the trauma, etc., not knowing how to deal with my emotions. I had no clue how to deal with my emotions, good or bad, If I was happy, I would drink. If I was sad, I would drink. So that just showed that I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. So I got therapy. I went to a couple AA meetings. My dad has been in that atmosphere, for 20 plus years now. So I knew what the AA meetings were about, and I know that they worked, right? Because I saw my dad's living proof that AA meetings work. Um, I started reading a lot. I read I started getting really deep into like my mind, right? And how my mind works and just seeing a lot of um, you know, self-help videos and um just seeing a lot of videos of what you do as well, man. Like, people that tell their story. There's nothing like, how can I put it? For me, there's nothing like somebody that understands what you've been through, and that for me has helped me out like like you can't imagine.
Now I know you said you have a relationship with your father now, and he's been sober 20 years. So he got sober when you were like still in high school. Um, is he seeing over the next decade what alcohol is doing to his son? Is he ever saying to you, like, son, you may want to follow me to an AA meeting? And are you scoffing at him, laughing at him? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, he told me many times, a lot of times, but he wouldn't push it, because obviously he knows that he's well aware that I could only change my situation. Nobody could change my situation. If I want to continue to suffer, I'm gonna suffer, right? He can't do nothing for me. It's like to me, that's something that I feel like from when I from the point that I stopped drinking, I started realizing that I was the one that obviously I ultimately from when I stopped drinking, I started taking accountability for everything that had happened in my life. That's one big thing that helped me out a lot, taking accountability for everything that I had done right and wrong, you know? Because for as long as I can remember, I would always blame my parents. I would blame my parents, I would blame this, that, everybody but me, you know? So I started taking accountability and that helped me out a lot, you know, saying, you know what, like the reason why you've been through what you've been through, because it's been your choice, and in reality, everything that I went through, it was my choice. Everything, absolutely everything. I could have decided to stop drinking from the first thing that ever happened to me, but I didn't. I was so used to suffering that that was kind of like my motivation to continue to suffer. It was kind of like, I don't know, it was kind of like to a certain extent, it was kind of like it would push me. Like I always liked feeling pain, for many years I liked feeling pain, getting tattoos, and I felt like that was part of my trauma as well.
What is it? Just the fear of the unknown? Like you said you got comfortable with suffering. Is it just that because you grew up suffering as a child, then just suffering as an adult is normal, and getting clean and sober is something that scares you because that's not normal?
100%. Yeah, because I was so used to, like, all of my friends, all the friends that I had from high school up to like, you know, up to now, you can say, all of those friends, they were drinking buddies, you know. Obviously I don't have any type of relationship with, I probably talked to one of the guys, and but other than that, I let go of all of those friends, because they were all drinking buddies. And when, it's scary to think that what's my life gonna be without drinking if it's been like this for so many years, like I'm not gonna have friends, I'm not gonna have fun. So many things go through your head, like what am I gonna do with my free time if I'm not drinking? So the reality is that at least my personal experience with this year and a half that I've been sober, it's like, man, I've been living so much better, man. My anxiety's a lot lower now. I've learned to deal with anxiety. It's something that never goes away. You just have to learn to live with it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I like the word you said, accountability. Like addicts are the most selfish people in the world. We hate accountability, but to get clean, you got to take accountability and just be like, wow, look what I've done with myself and with my life. How the hell did I get here? And it's all from us. So you got roughly 18 months or so sober now. What's life like now for you? What keeps you healthy? What keeps you sane? What have you learned on this journey? What's your daily habits, routines? Share with the audience what keeps you on a good path.
I work a lot. I spend a lot of time with my family. I exercise. I read. I do things that I never thought in a million years I would do. I mean, reading was not a thing that I did, not even in high school. So it's like, but knowledge is power. And I go to AA meetings here and there. I love listening to people that I told you that the way that you express your story, man, I think is just beautiful. Like not many people. I'm not that good at speaking. You're somebody that's very good at telling your story. And but yeah, I've done. I do a lot of reading. I see many videos of people, sharing their stories. I feel like that's helped me out a lot. Um, I have sober friends now. Um, yeah, people that don't drink. I don't go to parties. I don't go to bars. I don't go anywhere. I pretty much don't go anywhere that um I would feel like in some way, shape, or form like obligated to drink or pressured into drinking. So yeah, I mean, I work, spend time with family, spend time with my mom, with my dad whenever he's home, and yeah, that's pretty much what I do, man. I have fun doing what I do for work, and I love spending time with my kids. I feel like I owe 'em a lot, um, the world pretty much, so
So family, work, exercise, reading, therapy. You're like the poster child for getting healthy, man.
yeah, well, I mean,
Can you believe it?
I can't, and the thing is that, in order to change a bad habit, you have to get a good habit, so it's like I can't say I love myself 100%, but I love myself. For the first time in my life, I see a future. I think about a future, something that as a kid growing up, and when I got out of high school, I had no dreams. I would live week in a week, and like I didn't think about a future, man. I didn't think like other people, like, oh, in a year or 2 years, I'm gonna have a house and I'm gonna have a car. And I didn't have a car for, man, I think I got my first car at like 20 something, and that was because my dad gave it to me. And then he ended up, he ended up selling it because he was like, you know what, he probably shouldn't have a car.
Can you just imagine right now, like if you were drinking again, like you couldn't have the job you have, your family would probably, walk away from you. You got your little daughter, and you wouldn't be in her life, and just right back in the gutter, man. It just ah, jeez, it's not as scary now once you're on the other side of the fence. Just when you're in that, I think the addiction just tells you like, oh, that's going to be too tough to do.
Yeah, it's all about that voice, right? I was I don't know if I told you, but as a kid growing up, my mom would always pretty much put us down, like especially me. I could remember like and when I started drinking and I would miss work, she would tell me like, hey, you know what, like you're not worth anything. You're gonna lose your job, this and that. And she would always pretty much make me feel less, right? So um I grew up believing that voice, right? And when I obviously when I started going more into like mental health and whatnot, I learned that you can pretty much rewire your brain, like you can I for me, one thing that has helped me immensely, and I want to share it with whoever's listening, is I say positive things to myself in the morning when I wake up and at night when I go to sleep. And that's made me, you know, I'm becoming that person that I once wanted to become, like for many, many years, I thought I was not worth one penny, because that's what I heard for as long as I could remember, So I've learned little by little to rewire my mind, and man, I'm happy where I'm at.
Awesome. Really proud of you, man. Um, Thanks for sharing your journey.
Thank you, Clark. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, and let's hope somebody hears it and who's suffering right now and is like, if he can do it, I can do it.
I hope it helps at least one person, right?
Amen, brother. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for the space, man. Thank you.
All right, everybody, there you have it. Have accountability. Tell yourself positive things. Show some self love to yourself. And don't be afraid of making changes. We'll see you next week. Peace.